Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Greenland and also what Europe is doing. Looks like Europe, especially Denmark, is dumping United States 30-year-old bonds. So that's going to be discussed. I'm also going to be discussing Trump's letter to Norway, where he blames Norway not voting for him in the Nobel Peace Prize as the reason why he's taking Greenland. I'm also going to be talking about Trump sharing Macron's private messages, which was quite funny. And I'm also going to be talking about Iran and Syria and also Turkey. And it looks like the Kurds have been sacrificed, and I'm going to tell you why. It looks like they are moving some chess pieces, and it looks like what they did to Syria is what they want to do to Iran, and they have sacrificed the Kurds for that. So I'm going to be talking about that. And finally, I'm going to be talking about the UK's approval finally for the Chinese embassy in London. So all of that will be discussed. Without further ado, don't forget to like and share and try and watch the video to the end. It really helps the algorithm. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road, guys. So we'll start with this first article here from the Financial Times. And it's talking about whether the Europe has got any balls to leverage its 12.6 trillion pile of US assets. And I think it has. I think it's something that they will need to do. And I think it's already started. For example, the Danes, their pension pot, have been selling US Treasury bonds, 30-year-old bonds today. And because of that, the 30-year-old bonds have been spiking in the yields. And this is really not good news for the United States because the problem is if every single country sells United States bonds, whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 2 years, uh, the United States will have to buy those bonds themselves. If there's no foreign ownership of it, they will have to buy it using debt, and the debt will just spiral out of control, and it's something that they do not want. And Trump is a businessman, and the only way to hurt a businessman is through his pocket. If you can really hurt him so he loses money, that's when he will come to the negotiating table. But without that, if you cannot hurt him on a money level, then he will not come. He will act like a bully. And Trump has been doing that all his life. And the Europeans really need to wake up and grow some balls. They have 12.6 trillion dollars worth of investments in the United States, so they need to pull it all out. And they need to start investing to other parts of the world, namely China, Russia, even. They need to fix the Nord Stream, get the cheap Russian gas, and they need to start putting money, putting their soft power into other parts of the world, like the Middle East, Africa, Asia, Southeast Asia, and basically South America and things like that. And they need to start really hitting American brands in Europe. Companies like Facebook and Meta. I'm talking about Google. These companies have been making so much money, and even Apple as well, making so much money from the Europeans, and they hardly pay any tax for it. They hardly pay any tax whatsoever. Especially companies like Amazon. They're taking, local jobs away, local businesses away. Amazon has replaced many, like, has bankrupted many, businesses and corner shops and things like that. Because why go to the shop when you can just order it through Amazon? And the US companies have been having a free reign all across Europe, so they need to be really hit hard with more taxes. They need to be with more regulation and things like that. You cannot let these US companies run riot, and they have completely taken over the industry, especially in the UK. Every single business in UK is either part owned by an American firm or fully owned. If you walk down the high street, most of it is just US shops and businesses. So we don't want that, guys. And they also need to start selling bonds. They need to start, you know, stop investing in United States. They need to start obviously building factories and other things, manufacturing, supply chains all across the world. They need to join with China on the Belt and Road. They need to just decouple from United States. That's what I'm saying, guys. Decouple. And they need to start joining China on the Belt and Road and develop the Belt and Road railways and connections with China. So you have a huge landmass, right, guys? You have a huge landmass connecting Europe, Asia, Central Asia, Middle East, and to Russia and to China. You have this huge landmass, guys. And you can do so much with it. Imagine, like, I mean, China's already building the Belt and Road. Imagine if Europeans come and join the Belt and Road and start building a huge network of trains, even boats and shipping lanes and roads and things like that. This landmass would be able to trade with each other so easily. And America is just isolated. America is just one massive island. And America cannot trade with the rest of the world unless it trades by sea. And rail and roads will always be better than shipping because shipping takes a long time. There's huge bottlenecks when you come to shipping. For example, if you have to go through the Hormuz, you have to go through the Hormuz Strait, the Egyptian Canal, Malacca Strait. There's a lot of bottlenecks around the world, which adds to the time and delays. But with trains and roads, it goes there weeks faster, or sometimes even months. It really improves connectivity. So if Europe connects to China and Russia, imagine this huge landmass. Imagine the economic benefits everyone will have, trading with each other. And America will be completely isolated, and they will be having huge economic issues, being cut off from the rest of the world. And that will really hurt America, and they will have no choice but to get rid of Trump because he has pretty much destroyed America. So that's how you win, basically. But I don't know if the Europeans are going to do that or have the balls to do that. Making Europe weak has been America's plan ever since the Marshall Plan after World War II. America has basically said at that time, we will help you develop, we'll give you money, but in return, you got to do this, you got to be our vassal state, you got to be our puppets, you got to, do this, you got to do that, you got to join us in the uh, foreign escapades and foreign policies. You have to kind of join us and agree with us with whatever we do, and all of this stuff. And part of making Europe weaker is Ukraine. It was America that pushed this coup in Ukraine. It was Victoria Nuland, and Victoria Nuland famously said on some tapes which have been released, she said "F the EU" famously, and it was America that was pushing Ukraine to join NATO. They were the ones that were giving Ukraine the idea to do that. It wasn't Europe. It wasn't Europe that pushed the regime change in Ukraine. In fact, Merkel and Sarkozy was against it, and they were also against with Ukraine joining NATO as well. So it was all America, guys, all America, and blowing up Nord Stream, all America. They have done this to weaken Europe, and it's worked, right? Europe has been completely weakened. They were buying cheap Russian gas from Russia, but not only was it cheap, they were also buying it in euros. So imagine if that gets cut off. Imagine if you buy gas and oil from America, you have to buy it in dollars. So it props up the dollar and it destroys the euro. And this is why the euro is so weak because they cannot buy cheap Russian gas with euros anymore. So all of this plan was to make Europe weak, to make Europe, dependent on America, and it's worked. And these European fools have fallen for it. However, it's not too late. There's still time to turn around, and these puppet governments need to be overthrown by the people. First of all, they need to get rid of von der Leyen, the spy that works for America. She is just an American puppet, guys, doing America's bidding. So they need to get rid of her, and Europe needs to have a voice again. And I think once that happens, once they get rid of all the puppet leaders, von der Leyen, and they start, new leaders come on, younger leaders, they have some balls, and they have new ideas, new ways to tackle the world, new ways to tackle Trump. And I think that's the only way Europe will move forward. If they don't, then it's going to be too late. It's going to be a point where Europe will never ever recover. Because don't forget, Europe has got no natural resources, guys. They have to, buy natural resources from other countries, Africa, China, Russia. So they do not have an economy without natural gas. That is a major problem for United, for Europe. United States has got lots of oil and gas. They use fracking. They have lots of minerals and resources as well. They have a huge land mass as well. They have lots of gold and stuff like that as well. So America is rich in natural resources. Europe has none whatsoever. So this is why Europe needs to keep Greenland at all costs, because Greenland has got so much untapped resources. I mean, this is how ridiculously low IQ the Danes are. If the Danes if the Danes mined Greenland for the last 100 years, mined it to the max, I'm talking about, and forget about any environmentalists, or you have all of these, environmentalists, saying, "Oh, Greenland's beautiful. You cannot, mine this. You cannot do this. You cannot do that." All of these environmentalists work for the United States. Same as human rights activists, they all work for the United States, and he only suits them when um, when they get paid by the United States. Well, he only suits them when he, suits the United States. So, for example, if Israel is committing a mass genocide, these environmentalists, activists, and human rights people, they will completely stay silent. But if an enemy of United States does it, like Iran, for example, or China, these NGOs and human rights activists use it as a weapon. They start posting all sorts of stuff on newspapers and spread propaganda. So this is how they work. So Greenland has been basically the Danes were not allowed to basically mine Greenland. They do mine it a little bit here and there, but not enough. It's mainly the environmentalists have been preserving Greenland, and they've been preserving it for the United States. So the United States knew they would get Greenland one day, and they didn't want the Danes to extract all the minerals before they get to it. So what's changed? Why is suddenly America, so interested in Greenland? Obviously, you have all the natural resources Greenland has, which Europe needs, by the way. If Europe gives Greenland up, then that's it. Forget Europe. They will just break up, and because all their natural resources is in Greenland, they need to keep it at all costs, guys. And also with the Arctic route opening up, also climate change, the Earth is getting warmer. Greenland is becoming uh, a really good place for climate. Um, ice is melting in Greenland as well. So there's lots of land. You've seen the size of Greenland. There's lots of land there and plenty of resources. The population is not big. So America will pretty much use Greenland to do what it wants. They can turn it into massive military base. They can turn it into a mining station, mine all the resources. They can turn it into a rare earth processing country where they just pollute the lands of Greenland and process all these rare earths. They'll pretty much do what they want. And Trump wants to do that because Trump, this is Trump's final term, right? So he wants some sort of legacy in his name. He wants to be the president who gained Greenland, added that to the United States. So he wants to do that within his term in the next 3 years. So this is why he's in a rush to do it. It's got nothing to do with Russia. It's got nothing to do with China, by the way. It is all Trump, basically. So Europe needs to stand up fast and do something before it's too late. And if all I mean, I was looking at the stocks today, and the stocks have been dumping. So it looks like somebody has been dumping stocks. And it's most likely the Europeans, and they need to do it more over the next few months or years. There really isn't enough time. They need to do it fast. This is the only way that's going to stop Trump if you hit him in the pocket. So let's go to the next story. So Trump sent a letter to Norway saying that it's Norway's fault Trump is taking Greenland. He said in the letter, because Norway didn't vote for Trump to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, they said they, they said it's basically Norway's fault, and if they do not want a president to run for peace, then he's gonna basically be a war president. That's what he's saying in the letter. And it's absolutely bizarre, guys. Absolutely bizarre. You don't know whether he wrote it himself or whether he got other people to write it. It's almost like a narcissistic child that's written it. It's crazy, and I think the Norwegians are apparently shocked by this, and they released it on social media. And people thought it was a meme, but it's not a meme, guys. It's real. It's real life. Absolutely crazy. But it gets worse, guys. It gets worse. So Trump shared on his social media the conversations he's having with Macron. And this conversation with Macron gave away a lot, gave away a lot how these Europeans have been vassal states of the United States and how they kiss Trump's ass. So Macron is a major ass kisser, right? And in his text message, he said something like, we did a great job on Syria because they took down Assad, guys. And the United States, Europe, Turkey, and um, and other countries along the Middle Eastern region, they all worked together to topple Assad, basically. And they basically turned the country inside out. And it wasn't an overnight thing. This was done over the course of 10 to 20 years. You know how they work, guys. They first place these really bad sanctions on a country. Economically, they destroy it. They destroy the currency, and the people suffer. And the people suffer so much that they go to the streets to protest and things like that. And also, the country suffers. You can't pay the military, so that your military is not loyal to you. And this is what happened to Assad. He couldn't really pay his military. Syria is completely destroyed because of the sanctions. And then they send these armed terrorists into the country. We're talking about these Jalani guys, you know, and Turkey arms them. Europe pays for it. America pays for it, and um, and you've seen what happened. So they want to play the same playbook uh, in um, in Iran as well. So I'm going to get to that later. So in this letter, Macron was saying, "Yeah, we did a great job on Syria, and let's do a great job on Iran." So he's talking about, he's gloating about taking down regimes in Middle East, regime change and stuff like that. So he's gloating with his Trump buddy, so-called buddy, and he says, "Our next mission is Iran. Let's work on it together." So he's obviously talking about regime change. And at the end, he says, "Oh, let's have dinner and let's talk about regime change in Iran. And don't take Greenland. So that was his message to Trump, and Trump shared it on social media, and it was so funny because it's just a breakdown of trust. When someone shares intimate messages on social media and things like that, it's something a child would do at school. As an adult, you don't do that. Sometimes private conversations stay private. But I don't know what Trump's thought process was by sending this message out. Basically, he's trying to make Macron look like an idiot, like the puppet he is. Begging Trump to meet him for dinner and things like that, and saying that they were involved in Syria, now they want to be involved in Iran. So he's obviously bringing in the Europeans into it. It's not just America, CIA, um, Israel that's pushing regime change in Iran. It's Europeans as well, and especially Macron. So he's bringing him into it, and yeah, it didn't come across too well for Macron, to be honest. I don't know if you guys seen him lately. He's got a bruise in his eye. I don't know if his wife has beat him up again or something. But yeah, things are not looking good for Macron at all, guys, at all. So I wanted to talk about the Kurds and also what's happened to with the Al-Jilani regime in Syria. So it looks like the Kurds have been sold out by the Americans, and Al-Jilani is now taking over Kurdish areas, and he's basically massacring Kurdish people. Apparently, you know, Trump has made a deal with Jilani, and also he's made a deal with Turkey. So the deal is, Jilani and Turkey basically take over Kurdish areas, and if you know where the Kurdish areas are, this is northeast of Syria, but northwest of Iran, because Kurds, don't forget, there's Kurds living in Turkey, there's Kurds living in Syria, there's Kurds living in Iran, and there's Kurds living in Iraq. And they basically spread across these four countries. So it's northwest of Iran. So I think what the plan is, they want to do something similar to what they did to Syria. Because if you remember, they placed sanctions on Syria, then they sent these thugs, these Al Qaeda thugs from Idlib, I believe, and they basically managed to take over the country. And that's what they're going to do. I think this is why they sacrificed the Kurds, because they're going to put all the Al Jalani goons in the northwest area of Iran, or northeastern Syria, and they're going to build a base there, and they're going to arm them, they're going to train them, and when the time comes, I think they're going to be sent into Iran to do the same thing they did to Syria, and Turkey is going to arm them, obviously. I think that deal has been made, and this is why the Kurds have been sacrificed. So this is coming, by the way, and it could even happen over the next few weeks. You never know, because everything is happening for a reason. You have on aircraft carriers going towards Iran. You have air bases that are being emptied across the Middle East. You have planes delivering weapons and materials to Israel. There's a lot going on in the Middle East at the moment. So it looks like they're preparing something to do a full attack on Iran, and they're going to use these Jelani guys to do it as well. I don't know if that's going to work out too well, because Syria and Iran are different. Um, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that looks like that's going to be the plan, basically. So the Kurdish people have been sacrificed, and and they deserve it, guys. I mean, they do deserve it for everything that they've done. They have been absolute puppets of America. You know, being a puppet of America brings you nothing, absolutely nothing. And these Kurds have also been supporting Israel. They've been supporting Israel's genocide as well. So I've got no sympathy for them. Anyway, let's go to the next story. The next story is the Chinese embassy in London, which got approved. And finally, it's been approved, and all the newspapers are going crazy, saying, "Oh, these are spy. There's going to be Chinese spies everywhere. It's a mega. They call it a mega embassy, right?" But I want to show you the difference between the Chinese embassy and the American embassy. And when the Americans build a mega embassy, they, you know, the writing is completely different. They say, "Oh, it's a fortress in London," blah blah blah. And this is the American embassy. It's right next to the Thames River, and apparently there's going to be a nuclear bunker inside it. There's going to be, it's going to have round the clock security with AI. It's going to have its own anti-aircraft guns, anti-aircraft missiles. It's going to have boats that can escape into the Thames and also obviously um, go into kind of the sea in the Atlantic if they wanted to. And yeah, so they're building this in America. I mean, in London, and all the papers are going, "Wow, this looks amazing." They don't say anything bad about America because even if America is absolutely trying to destroy Britain, take over Greenland, and who knows, they might even come to take over Britain one day. Yeah, Americans don't give a crap about Britain, guys. I mean, Starmer is an absolute. He's been humiliated by Trump day in and day out, absolutely humiliated, and Britain has been humiliated by the United States as well. So it just shows a difference. If America wants to build an embassy in UK, there's no problem. It's still being built. You can see the pictures here. It's still being built in London. But if the Chinese want to build an embassy, and China is the second largest economy in the world, so obviously they want to have a big embassy. Doesn't make sense otherwise. Your embassy is basically has to be as big as your country. So if you have a big country with a big economy, then you need a big embassy. So you need to basically show that message around the world that a, you are a serious country and needs to be taken seriously. So it's the same everywhere in the world. So for example, if Mozambique wants to build an embassy in London, they're not going to get something like this. Obviously, it's going to cost them. They can't afford it. Well, they will probably have a small office somewhere in central London and use that as an embassy. So there's a difference. But if China does it, obviously China's a massive country, so a massive economy, so they will need lots of people. Um, and And yeah, there's a lot of Chinese people living in UK. People forget, there's Chinatown in London, and there's a lot of Chinese living in UK. So obviously they will need a big embassy for that as well. And there's a lot of Chinese businesses coming in and out of UK. So they need time, they need people to process all these applications and visas and business visas and business licenses and all of that stuff. So they need that. But all these Western papers are like, "Oh, it's spy this, spy that." I mean, come on, get over it, guys. I mean, you can see the way Trump is acting, the way Trump is acting around the world. Your enemy is United States, not China. So who would they rather have, China as a friend or Trump as a friend? Because this is the options that you have. And guess what they chose? They'd rather choose Trump. Not all newspapers are like this, by the way. Only some newspapers. I mean, Guardian has been very anti-Trump, and suddenly they've been very friendly towards China. The articles have been very friendly towards China in recently. They've not been in the past. They've been very anti-Chinese, but they are very anti-Trump. You can tell by some of the articles. But yeah, there's still some papers out there who are still anti-Chinese, and they will never leave that, unfortunately. Anyway, that's all for now. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now.